Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Dimitra, I'm the events manager for Mauve Group. This week I've sat down with our global sales manager Annette and our business development and project consultant Roger. Roger recently went through a transition here at Mauve Group and I wanted to talk to him about it, ask him some questions and get both his side of his perspective on the process and of course Annette's perspective, who is his manager, and see how that worked out for us as a company versus how it worked out for him as an employee. So let's meet them both and let's ask them some questions.
Well, thank you for joining me today. I heard about Roger's story and I thought it was perfect for us to jump on and discuss it. And I wanted to have both of you to obviously hear Roger's side of things and also Annette as his manager at the time when he made this change. So just to give a little bit of a backstory, and then Roger, you can jump in as well. You were located in London, you were living and working in our London office. And then in March, you decided to, well, not decided, you had some work meetings in Spain. So you flew back to Spain and it just so happened to be the very same day that Spain went into lockdown. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Just with the difference that my flight was booked in the afternoon on the first place. But then seeing
Right.
how the whole country was going to be on lockdown, maybe on Saturday midday, then I decided on Friday night to book another flight to Saturday morning, just to make sure that I would able to
get there on time.
Yeah.
And you said you just made it in on time, which is great.
Yeah.
I imagine, I'm not sure, I imagine the meetings obviously didn't go ahead after all, but then you spent a couple months in Spain, if I'm right, with the plan that you would eventually return to London, just like I've been in Cyprus and I intend to return to London. But at some point you decided actually, no, you're gonna change, if you can, you'd like to change and stay and relocate in Spain. So can you talk me through first what brought you to this decision?
Yeah, yes, as you mentioned, on the first place, I just planned to, well, on the very first place, I just wanted to, as I usually did, to fly back to Spain to have some meetings, then in a couple of weeks to come back to London, continue working in the office. And this is the way I used to work when I was working from London. Due to the pandemic, I had to stay in Spain longer than I expected. And over this time, and due to the whole uncertainty that we all still have because of the pandemic, it made me feel that I would maybe the right place to be for me was to stay in Barcelona, my home city, close to my family, maybe less concerned about how everyone is, especially my family, my closest friends, the people that I've been with my whole life. And also the situation in the UK, or especially in London, where I've loved to be living, was quite different. A lot of people from central London was relocating to outside of the city. The offices were empty. Everything changed. So I realized that with this scenario, I would probably be happier and be more focused and have a better life, at least for this period, living in Barcelona, back close to my family and friends. So this is why taking all these factors, sometimes to make the decision to relocate to another country, even though it's your home country, but it's not an easy thing to decide. And there's a lot of factors that can affect this decision. But after thinking a little bit more and with some time, I realized that the best for me was if I had this option, to relocate myself back to Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a very uncertain time, and it still is, as you said. And it is scary being away from, I mean, it doesn't change really what's going on, whether you're in London or in Spain, but it does change just how you feel about the whole situation, and you just feel a little bit safer knowing that you're near your friends and family, and you can almost sort of look out for them as well. So tell me, what was the so when you decided that you wanted to do this, so then you obviously had to speak to Annette about it, and what was that like for you?
Well, once I realized that I really wanted to be in Spain, sometimes it's just an idea, then you realize is something that you have to start this process where you have to speak with the company that you're working in, then see whether this is possible or not. However, I was quite confident that with Mouth Group that would be possible, because for my experience with working with Mouth for these last 2 years and seeing how the company, how it's important for the company that the employees are happy, which is definitely, and I can tell that it's something that knowing especially Anne, the CEO, John, the CFO, the founders of the company, they are always caring about the employees, which is really important. I think also for the employees to then be more motivated, and I was quite confident. Well, Annette can tell when I brought it into the call with her, I knew that this was going to be. I mean, that was my decision, and it was just so easy, for at least for my perspective. Maybe it was not that easy for internally, but the best thing to say about it is that for me it was just so easy. I just let them know my details and everything in order to do the right paperwork, and yeah, I didn't even have to do anything specific or try or whatever.
Yeah, let's ask Annette then. So Annette, obviously you handle things from the other side. So when Roger came to you with this idea that he would love to relocate to Spain, initially what was did you expect it, and what was your reaction to it, and then what was the process from then on to make that happen?
To be honest, I'd not thought about it going permanent. It had not really occurred to me, because what Roger does, he can do it in the UK, he can do it in Spain. It doesn't really affect things. So it was absolutely fine. It's not the first time one of my team have asked about relocating, so it's not the first time I've been through it. And actually, it's a relatively easy process. I mean, obviously, we've been doing it 25 years, so for us, it is very easy. It's our day to day. But It was quite easy, you just look at the options. Is the job going to work? If it's going to work, fantastic. Do you need to employ the person differently? How do you get them on the payroll, get the contract? And then you just look at practical things like, do they need a SIM card? Where are they going to work? Does the computer plug in okay there? Do you need to do anything like that? So really, really straightforward, to be perfectly honest. Really.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It can't, for someone like us who's been doing it for such a long time, it can seem like a very easy and simple process. And as you said, I think it is to an extent. Obviously, for a company who hasn't done it before, they could be scared by the idea and think that it's very complicated. But I think it's not, but you do have to be aware of some things that you might leave out, some things that you might forget. And it can be as simple as what you just mentioned. Do they have a SIM card? Do they have, are the lines of communication open so that you don't lose that? And I'm sure as a manager, it's important for you to be able to have that communication with all of your team. No wonder where is your team located? So where do you have team members at the moment?
So at the moment, we've just split down. So business development is split off to Tamlin now. So my personal team is Scotland, York, and Cyprus, Singapore and New Zealand. So all over.
So you've got all over, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you, Annette, did you notice anything about Roger's work the last sort of month when he was still in the UK, but things around the pandemic were starting to get worse and worse? And then versus, have you noticed any changes in Roger since he's relocated to Spain? And what are those changes, if there are any?
Yeah, so I didn't notice anything. It didn't suddenly go downhill or anything like that. But I've certainly, and we've actually discussed this together in our one-to-ones, myself and Roger. I've certainly seen a real improvement since coming back to Spain, and just more confidence, just generally happier. I think actually staying in London would have been really detrimental. I think you've already said, you'd have been distracted, you would have been worried about your family, your friends. So I think, it was the perfect move, and it's been really, really good. We've had some fantastic deals closing just this last month or so. We've been working together a lot more as well, which has been great. So it's been, from my side, all positive.
Oh, great. And I mean, it's interesting to hear that you've been working almost like you've been working together even more, even though he's further away from you, because you're in the UK, you're in York. So that's quite interesting. It just goes to show that no matter, with technology nowadays, no matter where they are, it is still possible to keep that communication open and to work as efficiently as you would be working if you were together. So let me ask you, Annette, I have a few friends who also were living and working in London, and unlike myself, who I've also been very lucky that our company has allowed me to come and work in Cyprus on a temporary basis whilst all of this sort of passes. But a lot of my friends weren't able to do that, and even though they're in London and they weren't allowed to go to their offices, their employers still wouldn't allow them to come back home. What would you say to those sort of companies? What can you say to convince them that actually this is a good move to let your staff, to let your team members do that?
Well, firstly, I can quite imagine companies being in that situation where maybe they've got 5 different people in 5 different locations and they've got no experience of working overseas, and the people come to them and it's just easier to say a blanket no to everybody. I can really understand where companies might have been coming from there, and I'm sure those decisions were made at the very, very best of intentions at the time. But coming back to the question, what I would say, don't say no without looking at your options. So I think there is a big misconception that you've got to set up a company in the location to be able to employ a worker there. And, it's not the case. Yeah, of course you can do, but there are other options. You could register as a foreign payroll, which is something we've been doing over these last months for people. There's the employer of record, whereby we can employ people on behalf of other organisations, and as a company we've got 60 entities ourselves, so we've really been through the whole process of setting companies up. We're so experienced in that we can employ people in well over 100 countries, so there's not a reason just to say no without looking into it, because actually it's not as difficult. You don't necessarily have to put thousands and thousands of capital into a country to be able to employ one worker. So I would just say, speak to somebody like us, because we can give you the options. There's normally 2 or 3 options to look at. We can give you those. The answer still might be no. It doesn't mean the employer's going to say yes. They're going to have their reasons for the decision, but at least they're making an informed decision then.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So I think you're right. It's not about them trying to do something to just not allow people to be with their families or friends. It's just that they might be worried what the consequences are for their company, and they just not aware of the options that are out there.
Absolutely.
Sorry, just to add some point of what Annette was saying. I've saw that now that I've relocated back here, and I'm coming across a lot of people that some of old friends, or I don't know, some people of my family, people that I used to be with. I've had to explain my situation and that I've now relocated here. And a very typical question is, what have you done with your job in London? Did you lose this job? Are you looking for a new job? What is your employment situation? And I can see how surprised they are when I just explain that Move Group has the option to relocate their employees and also the client employees to overseas, even though our client doesn't have an entity set up. That this is a real option, and that it's not that difficult. It's just something that I'm doing for the last 25 years. And I think this option is something that there's still a lot of people who doesn't know that, and it's I can see how people is surprised when I explain how easy has it been, this process. And it's very important that that not just the people, not just the employees, but also the employers know that in case they have an employee or the situation where it makes sense for their own business to have people employed in another location, it's just easy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think a lot of the people that I've come across, maybe the younger people, are more aware of it, but definitely the sort of older generation may not be aware that those options are available. Now, obviously, there's a difference, as you said, Annette, in the beginning. Roger's job, he can really do from anywhere around the world. So that's why he's able to relocate so easily. But obviously, if it's a different type of job where you're needed on site, or you need to meet up with certain clients in certain locations, then, we're talking about something very different. But on that point, Roger, given that, you and I are the same age, we come from this generation where I think people they're looking for those types of jobs where they can work from anywhere around the world. And I certainly know I have a lot of friends that have rejected certain jobs because their employer wouldn't allow them to do that. So in your experience, just from your friends, from your circle of friends and family, what would you say is that a sort of trend that's coming now, that people are looking for those sort of jobs?
Absolutely. I've had the I have the feeling, and speaking with these friends and family now that I've just explaining my situation and how easy has it been for Move Group to relocate me here. I think I could see not just the people were surprised, but also the value they were seeing in working in a company like Move, or using these Move services. So because as I was saying, I think there's a lot of people who still doesn't know that this is an option, and nowadays I think our generation is something that it might even value even more than the salary in some cases. Because with this, in this world, in this changing world where it's very difficult to have or to plan to do a very long plan in your life, where maybe years before it was different, but now for me, for instance, it's very difficult right now to say what is going to be my 20 years plan. But if I had to explain, in detail, I don't even know where I'm going to be happier in 3 years, in 2 years, because we don't know what's going to happen, especially in that situation we're living now.
Absolutely.
So the option of being working on a company that allows to be located in the place where you want to be, I think is really, really important, and I think is one of the best values a company can have.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And Annette, I'm going to ask you one last question as well. Have you found recently, since this whole, obviously I know that this has been a very popular thing to use our employer record services. It's sort of a new culture in the business world. It's a new trend in the business world. But have you noticed an increase in this area since sort of February, March, when the pandemic hit?
Yeah, absolutely, hugely so actually. By the middle of this year, we'd outnumbered last year, the entire year's clients that we signed up. So what we're seeing is an awful lot of companies and organisations such as universities had already offered jobs to people to relocate to their site. That all stopped, and they wanted to carry on employing those people. So we've got, as I say, universities, many organisations that we've got people on quite temporary employments at the moment, where it simply is a case of we'll employ them until they actually can move to wherever they need to go to, which has been really fantastic for organisations, because a lot of them didn't realise that service was available. Like Roger said, realise that it's cost effective, it's fast to get in place. So we've seen a huge increase in demand. We've been really fortunate through COVID.
Yeah, and I think another point that you just mentioned, which is really important, and again, a lot of companies aren't aware of, is that this is not something that you have to do on a permanent basis. You can just do it temporarily while you wait for things to to see what happens with everything. So instead of sort of staying in the position that you're in and waiting for this to pass, it's a great thing for companies to act now, make a change, but know that that change isn't going to be permanent, that they can in a few months decide, do you know what, things are going back to normal, let's go back to how we used to work.
That's right, yeah, and it also it opens people's eyes up as well. I think as businesses, if they've been forced into this situation, they've done it, and then next time they're hiring, they don't necessarily have to hire in London or in the UK. There's an entire world of talent out there, and it means that people can actually look and say, okay, there are these people in London, but there's thousands and thousands of qualified people available, and it allows people who might not have had certain opportunities to get those opportunities as well. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a really good thing, allowing people to be able to work remotely. And I think we've all seen, haven't we, in the news, that it's just getting more and more common. It's going to be everywhere, I think.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. Those are some really great points. Thank you both for coming on. I really wanted to catch up with both of you, and I wanted to see how Roger's journey was. Obviously, we can't see each other, and I worked with Roger in London, so when I heard that he'd relocated to Spain, I wanted to see how that was for him. And obviously he'll be dearly missed, but hopefully I'll see him again soon. Hopefully I'll see you both again soon.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. Lovely to speak to you both.
You too. Take care.
A big thank you to Annette and Roger for joining me this week. It's always great to speak to them, and it's always great to get their perspective. Roger as from the employee side, and then Annette, who was representing our company in this case. As you can see, there are options available to companies. All they have to do is look for them, find the right experts to help you, to guide you along the way. If you're not sure, give us a call, tell us what your situation is, tell us what you're looking to achieve, and then we will tell you the best plan of action specifically for you and your company. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care.